So I touched on that already. Yeah, so as I said, serverless application model being an open source framework, this is something that we'll be touching on briefly today, and actually looking at what are the different components of that. So it's the abstracted version that actually goes and creates a CloudFormation template for you with a transform phase. But the real concept here is you really want to have a shorthand thing. So if you look at a CloudFormation template, this is what a serverless application template would look like at an abstracted level. We actually have multiple different resources that can be created just on a short few lines of code. If you did that in CloudFormation, it would most probably be a couple of hundred lines of code potentially. So this really helps you be able to abstract and be able to focus a lot more on what you need to be focusing on, than trying to find out all those nuances of how things are connected. Let companies and tooling and things like Stackry help you understand the deeper relationships that happen there, that you don't need to essentially have to do on every day, but still have the functionality to dive deep if you need to. So as I mentioned, if you've got this template that you've created that's going to deploy your architecture with a single API call, a CLI call, you can kind of go and deploy that same architecture globally in all your different regions. So you've got a template that you really love. It deploys your your serverless app that's going to serve your customers, and you've landed a good Series A and you want to expand your company globally. Just with a couple of lines of code, you can go and test that and deploy your architecture to all the regions that support this, which we continuously expand on. So, if any of you are familiar with modern application developments and moving towards this whole DevOps and continuous integration, you are very familiar with source control, and you really want to have automation in place here and testing at every level. So once you've got that application, you want to push it out there, depending on the programming language that you've chosen. You want to be able to compile. You have something that automatically takes that source code that you've pushed in somewhere. You want to stand it up. You want to do tests on those things. So and you want to create an artifact that you're confident that is going to serve your customers correctly, and it's passed all the tests that you guys have put in place. So in the build test, we have a service called Code Build, which essentially takes that code, it stands it up, you can run a whole bunch of tests against it. I highly recommend checking that out at some point. The test part, we have partner tooling in place where you can connect onto this pipeline. I'll show you guys what is this in a good example coming forward. But essentially you want to do multiple testing, depending on what your application or your business does. If it's an internal serving application or public, if you've got compliance things, or if you need to have a whole bunch of things, automation is key here. Every step of this path, if you can automate as much as possible, it's going to help your developers focus on what they need to, compared to have to manually jump through these steps every time they get a new application. When you hear people that have companies releasing X amounts of features, daily or weekly or monthly, those are the companies that have automation driving the developers to improve the customer experiences, than having to sit here and do these things manually. And then the final step is, once it passes all automatic steps, you want it to go out there into production. And this is something that we'll be diving into deploying applications to AWS today. So as I mentioned, Code Build is a nice little service that you can plug into your pipeline. It can grab that source code, it can go and do some tests, it stands it up, you can generate an artifact that you can use to go push out. An AWS code pipeline is really cool. So you can actually define these steps automatically. So it's an AWS service that you can actually express what happens at every different step. In this case, there's 3 very simple stages here that we've created, which we use in Code Commit, which is our code repository service on AWS. But you can define, where's your source code going to be, and once that change actually happens, an automatic pipeline goes and kicks off. So what happens is, I've just pushed a new version to Code Commit. Code Build grabs that, stands it up, does a whole bunch of tests. If that all passes, it must go and push that up through CloudFormation. And if you can see at the bottom, I've got a little custom Lambda function that I've dropped in there to go and do post-production deployment assessments. You can flesh these out as much as you want. This is a very basic stage example. So now we've got our application out there, and let's say, for example, I've got a puppy rental website, or you can buy, your favorite puppies, or there's an application out there that customers are going to, and they're looking at, this. And we really want to be able to understand what's happening there. So with the right tooling in place, you want to make sure that your customers are all getting the same consistent experience. Let's say I deployed this application to multiple different regions. It's serving Europe, it's serving Asia Pacific and US. You only have a few developers maybe as a startup. You don't want them to have to go and spend hours trying to figure out why customer experience is poor in one particular area. With the right tooling in place, it can tell you exactly where things are going wrong and potentially empower those developers or people to see things proactively before they even start happening. So this is something that Epsagon does really well, and today we'll be looking at that as well. As I mentioned on AWS side, we've got CloudWatch and X-Ray, and these are the two services that provide AWS specific sort of end-to-end application monitoring, as well as sort of logs and metrics collection. So when you launch a Lambda function, this is kind of hazy, but you guys will see it today when you do your little hands-on. You can kind of see a whole bunch of metrics from that Lambda function. And X-Ray, kind of being able to do some sort of tracing, you'll be able to also potentially have a look at this. But today we'll be looking at from an Epsagon point of view, which is really cool. So there was a lot of information we covered today. If you have any questions, if there's anything else that you need to kind of learn more about, we're all here today to help out. And this is definitely a journey. I still learn every day as a solution architect. If you have something that you want to share with us, same thing. If you want to see things improve from a customer experience or tooling or services, let us know. We want to make things a lot easier for customers, so do our partners. It's most important to make sure that we continuously iterate and improving things. So I hope this has kind of helped you guys kind of frame where we are starting off on. So thank you, and enjoy the workshop.